Hi, my name's Alvin, and I'm the Youth Ministries Associate at CBOQ Youth. In the last few months, there have been a lot more youth engaging in online gaming. So a lot of times you'll notice that they're on their screens a lot more. And so a lot of parents are now asking, so what do I do? How do I handle this? How do I talk to my kids about this? And that's what this webinar is for. We are glad to have Chris Gwaltney and Bret and Chapman, and you'll see their bios in the link below. They're going to get a chance to dialogue and better understand what are some of the things that they faced. What are some particular challenges, but also opportunities that are available for parents as they engage in this whole idea of esports with their kids. And so, welcome, Bret.
Hi, my name is Bret Chapman. And first and foremost, Alvin, I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to put this little project together. I am so excited about a couple of things. So, having been in pastoral ministry now for almost 30 years, 29 years since I started moving and doing youth ministry and young adult ministry, and I've recently transitioned towards family ministry. And so, we are taking this opportunity to put together a quick little interview. I had a friend of mine interview me because of what's happening in our family and our dynamics, as I've got two boys, 17 and 22, that are on what's referred to as the path to pro. So my 17-year-old came to me in the spring of 2019 and said, Dad, I'm going to be a professional esports player. And I went, like every parent would, how can I help? No, we probably wouldn't necessarily do that, but that was our journey. This is the place that my son came to with us, and we've now been moving towards kind of getting him trained, getting him into the right context within this digital landscape that can be very overwhelming for parents, to say the least. And so what we're going to do is Chris is going to interview me and just talk about my experiences with my kids growing up and how we got to the place that we are today. I'm going to pray just now, and I'm going to talk to you again at the end of the video. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you that we are in a crazy place, that we are seeing the world change almost minute by minute, and that the only thing that we can hang on to is you. You, O Lord, are our anchor, are the point of reference, are the horizon that we're moving towards. As parents, as we passionately want to see our kids step into the fullness of who you've created them to be, I pray that this would be at least a half step, even a full step, into the opportunity for us to understand what our kids are actually working through. What are they becoming today that we may not know, understand, or have a reference point outside of you? But that you, oh Lord, love our kids so much more than we do. And you have their absolute best in mind. Lord, be with us as we watch this video and just help bring to mind what we're battling through, what we're questioning. We just thank you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Hey guys, my name is Chris Gwaltney, and I am the Chief Executive Nerd with Love Thy Nerd. And I get the opportunity to interview Bret today. We're going to be talking a lot of parenting stuff, a lot of esports stuff, a lot of just digital landscape and how things have changed a lot over the years and what we can do to better engage our young people in those things. So, before we jump in, I just kind of wanted to give a little context for myself, a little context for, just Bret and I and our relationship, and then we'll kind of just dive into some of this stuff. So, like I said, I'm the one of the founders, co-founder, and chief executive nerd for Love Thy Nerd. We're a nonprofit ministry. Our Essentially, our mission is to be the love of Jesus to nerds and nerd culture. We do a lot of different things to hopefully achieve that mission. We have a lot of content that we do. We have outreach. We have community building stuff, and really for us, it's just about finding ways to love and serve our nerdy neighbors. Bret and I, we actually met several months ago on a global esports call. So these are people from all over the world that are interested in finding creative, innovative ways to do ministry through esports. And so we kind of had some mutual contacts. We met on this call. I heard him say a few words and I'm like, I've got to talk to this guy. Like, I've got to make him be my best friend. And so far it's working. I've got him to at least talk to me once a week. So something's working, right? But yeah, it's been really cool just to kind of work together on this project and, just have a lot of these conversations about all this stuff. So yeah, Brett, I guess I'm just kind of curious, like for you, how did you kind of get into this sort of realm of like video games, esports, parenting, like what kind of sparked that passion in you? Or
hmm I think like most of my generation, when it comes to video games, we fell into it by accident,
Mm,
just as a hobby or as an escape or something, just to kind of get away from the real world. And so I've been playing video games for close to 22 years now. Played all sorts of games, from shooters to adventure to quest based to role playing, so many different genres that are out there. And I think for me, it there isn't even really one that I love the most. Rather, I just really enjoy engaging with people in this digital space.
mm,
I think probably one of the biggest pitfalls, coming back to that escapism part, is I can remember playing a game that was named World of Warcraft, and I got lost. I got lost in the game so
mm.
many times. You know,
Like
my
literally lost in the game.
literally lost in the game for
Yeah.
sure. But then, at the same time, my wife would give me the instructions to put the kids to bed and be like, just one more quest. And my kids would fall asleep on the floor beside me or whatever. Like, I wasn't a great dad at the
Been there.
time, but I think that I learned some really valuable things about, parenting and connecting and drawing. Like, I drew my kids into the adventure with me. My wife wasn't super happy about it in the beginning, but as we'll finish the story a little bit later. But where my kids are at today, I think it is definitely made a positive difference in our family
Mm.
and the dynamics that we have happening here.
Yeah. And that's a great, like, just that last thing you said is that it's made a positive impact in your family and in your kids. Like, I think so often we hear the opposite or we feel the opposite for whatever reason, that like video games are a detractor, they're a negative, they're at best, they're neutral, or just, kind of a waste of time. There's better things you could be doing.
hmm
But to hear you say, like in full confidence, like, no, it's been a positive thing for us and our family.
hmm
Um, yeah, I'm excited to kind of dig into that. So let's talk like parenting, more like less specific video games for now, but like let's talk just kind of broad, big picture, 10,000 foot view, just parenting stuff and how that's drastically changed over the last, few decades. I mean, obviously from when you were a kid or from when I was a kid, um, to now, like what are the major sort of changes you've seen? And then maybe we can drill down into some of those things.
Well, I mean, I wasn't a super athletic kid. I was
Hmm.
I was this tiny, scrawny little rugrat that just. But my mom wouldn't let me stay in the house, so it
Hmm.
was just go and play, and you'd leave just after breakfast and you'd come back when the sun went down, kind of idea.
Hmm.
And we got into our trouble, we got into our difficulties, and had our challenges, but it was it was never a dull moment. It was always something happening adventure wise. There was always something happening in the idea of just being a kid. I struggled with school. I wasn't super academically minded, so I didn't really have a group or a place that I fit into. Um, and I came across this fantastic meme uh, where the comment was, if we parent our kids the way that we were parented, we're setting our kids significantly further back than they should be.
Hmm.
And I think today, like, I don't want my kids outside of the house. It's dangerous. It's a dangerous place. Like,
Especially during a global pandemic.
Yeah, especially during a global pandemic. But
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, I it's so different, right?
Mhm.
Like, and and being in the role where I'm the significant influencer, or hopefully the significant influencer in my child's life, and I'm the one that is kind of holding on to those strings. It's hard sometimes, and I can remember working as a youth worker and being in the community social work uh, dynamics, and trying to help parents come to grips with what is happening in the life of their kid, like what is happening beyond their vision, beyond their view. And I mean, there's a great story that just kind of pops up into my mind. And we had our kids in the neighborhood. They were out playing, doing their thing, and being with the neighbors. And this parent comes over to me, and this lady's having an argument with me about my son. And she says, "You probably think your kid is the best kid on the block." And I went, "Oh hell, oh no, I don't have any aspirations to the fact that my kid is the best kid here."
Mhm.
And it shocked her, because I wasn't in this defensive place where I was trying to defend my kid, my son, um, because I wanted my son the opportunity to be told that he wasn't perfect. And that was, I think, for me, the first shift that I made in my parenting model,
Mhm.
where I was able to realize that my kids will only be as good or as bad as they're directed. I don't think I've said that very well.
No, yeah, I get that. Um, I think there's uh, when you talked about that meme, this idea of like, if we raise our kids the way that our parents raised us, there's going to be trouble. Um, I think there's a danger with tradition. Not that tradition in and of itself is bad, but I think this like tight white knuckled sort of holding
Mm-hmm.
on to it can be dangerous because of how much and how rapidly things can change in our society, in our world, in our even in our faith. Um, and I mean, just one of those that changed from when we were kids versus having kids, the internet. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have the internet. Like,
No.
I mean, I had it probably, well, sooner than you, because I'm a little bit younger. But I mean, I didn't have that until what, I think middle school. You probably didn't. When did you guys get the internet? Like,
After
probably
college.
not while you were, yeah, like,
There was some internet at college, but it was
mhm,
all message boards. There
yeah,
wasn't really an interactive space that people
right.
went to and connected.
That's
Um,
because on 56K modem, it would take 3 minutes for one picture to load. You guys remember where it'd be like, it would just
yeah,
slowly crawl down the page and you're just waiting with anticipation.
yeah.
What's it going to be?
Or
Yeah,
there
I
was
remember.
the connection sound on dial up. That was
Hmm.
always when your phone
Yeah.
connected to the internet, or your computer
Yeah.
connected to the phone line. That was like a joyful moment.
So now just kind of working out timeline stuff, like when did you have kids versus when kind of the internet and that sort of stuff was coming online? Like,
Well,
have they pretty much always had internet like their whole life?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
So my oldest is 22,
Hmm.
and so he was born in 98,
Hmm.
and kind of internet's really starting to get a grip probably 96, 97. Um, YouTube is born in 2004, I believe.
Yeah.
So, my son is 6 at the time
Yeah.
when the internet really kind of gets started. And I can remember, pulling him up into my lap and just hanging out and playing games and
Hmm.
and the sort. Um, and I don't even, yeah, like it's incredible to think how parenting has changed over the decades, right? Like, I can go back to my parents. My grandparents have now all passed away, but you know, being raised by that generation, you were really still, it was still in the process of training your kids in the way that you are going, versus that Bible verse, training up your child in the way they should go,
Mm,
so that when they're old, they do not depart from it. But we
mhm.
hadn't captured at that, I don't think, in our parenting model. And that was one of the, when I'm trying to teach parents, I don't really have kids yet, and I'm trying to talk to them about parenting.
Mhm.
Um, it seemed like every year my kids got older, I changed the way I was talking about parenting, or changing the way in which I was trying to apply the model.
Yeah.
We used a fantastic parenting tool that really taught like a strong essence of obedience, and order and routine within our life. It was incredible, and we still teach that now to make sure families have an opportunity to build a solid foundation.
Yeah.
And for us, as I watch how parenting has shifted over the years, we I my wife came kicking and screaming, because growing up in a very conservative space, she just wanted the kids to obey what she wanted them to
Sure.
do. But I got this idea somewhere in the reaches of my brain, and I made the decision I was going to parent for Christmas 2025. Now, we're still in 2021, depending on when you're watching the video,
Mhm.
but I wanted to know that every decision I was making was about the future relationship I was going to have with my child,
Mm.
versus the present obedience that was necessary. Now, life
That's
threatening.
really, so I want to stop there just real quick
Yeah.
because I think that's a really important. I'm not a parent yet. I've been a child. Maybe some people would say I am still a child. Uh, but what I've found just in my learnings and my interactions with, over the years, students and those kind of things, is what you just said, which I think is always very important, is, and I've heard it said other ways, which is like accidental parenting versus kind of intentional parenting,
Okay.
or like, proactive versus reactive kind of thing. And
Mhm.
I think that's kind of where you're getting at what you're saying, which is like, you're thinking ahead. You're thinking not just in this moment, what can I do to shut my kid up, or what can I do to get them
Mhm.
to obey, or what can I do to just get out of this moment.
Mhm.
It's what I do right now in this moment is going to influence, and this is scary. Like, it's honestly scares the crap out of me.
Absolutely.
But I think that's how we have to think, because if I think of my own life and my relationship with my parents, and any of you watching this video have any number of different kinds of dynamics of relationships with your
Mhm.
parents, think about how much that affects you. Think about how much that shapes you. Think about how much that has dictated things in your life. It will make you look at parenting a completely different way, and hopefully in a more intentional way,
Yeah.
that you do exactly like what you're saying, which is, and it may seem stupid, like it may just seem like a small, simple, like meaningless decision, but it could be something that impacts them for years and years to come.
Yeah. And I mean, building on it, continuing, is that we just chose to value the relationship over the behavior,
Mm,
and it allowed us to be in a space where we were always inviting our kids back into a relationship with us. It
mhm,
didn't matter what they did wrong, and we always talked to them about if there was something that we felt that they were doing that wasn't appropriate, or was not in character to who they were or we were as a family. Like, we always brought those up, but we would do it in what they call like a non-conflict moment,
mm,
where everybody's calm, right? There's something different about having a conversation with a child. Now, yes, we yelled. Yes, we did things that were abrupt and necessary because our kid was about to run out into the street and into traffic. So there is a moment where do need to be there to protect our children. The struggle then is, how do we separate that as they grow and they develop that personal responsibility? Because, like I said, I want that relationship with my kids going forward.
mhm.
Um,
You said something a little bit earlier that I don't want to lose because I think it was really like it sort of succinctly answers this question of like how has the parenting model shifted over the last however many decades? And the way you said it was, it used to be like parents were parenting their children to raise them the way that they are. Like, I'm
Mm.
just creating a mini version of myself versus kind of what you're saying, which is, no, I want them to be the most fulfilled version of them. And I'm here to guide them towards that.
Yeah.
Right. Like, is that kind of how you were saying that?
Yeah, and that's probably the scariest, the most the most terrifying space to allow your kid to enter is a space that
Sounds a
you never.
lot harder,
Yeah, it is a
frankly.
lot harder because you
Yeah.
don't know what's there.
Yeah.
And I know for my wife and I, we're in this space where we're trying to make sure we're helping our kids learn and inhabit the tools necessary to navigate the space without us.
Yeah. And
And
it's oversimplification, but it's teach a man to fish versus give a man a fish, right?
there you
Like
go.
that whole kind of
Yeah,
proverb or whatever
that
you
whole
call it.
scenario.
Like
Yeah.
you'd give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, he'll eat for the rest of his life.
That's
That's an
right.
oversimplification of like
Yeah.
parenting this
Yeah.
kind of model, but it really, I think that's what it is.
hmm And celebrating the losses,
Mm,
celebrating when your kid makes a mistake, because that is the teachable moment that you're after.
mm,
Those are the moments where you get to talk about your family values. Those are the moments that you get to say, not not pointing the finger at them like you messed it up, but you get to come alongside them, right? Like I think that is a super powerful space as parents to think about this digital landscape,
mm,
and that you know my kids needed to learn safe practices on the internet in our family room, and they had to earn the opportunity to take their computers to their bedrooms,
mm,
right? They this isn't something that we just gave them freely,
mm,
but we wanted them to learn the practices that we have, the behavior that we have when it comes to the internet, and how do we engage with people in that digital space. And so, like, my son listened to me for however many months we've been doing our conversations. I
mm.
one of my kids was here in the room listening to everything, and he just kind of like popped one ear cup off, and he'd listen, and then he'd ask me a question like 2 days later. Oh, you were talking to that guy from California. What were you? What did you? What was he talking about? And we would
Yeah.
just we would hash it out a little bit.
I'll send him an invoice. It's fine.
There you go. Yeah, that's how it works. Nothing in life
Uh,
is free.
s- yeah. So I would like to kind of turn the corner a little bit and get into more of the like esports video games kind of
Mm,
conversation, like how that entered into things, for you and your parenting, like your kids getting into that, you being into that, and what that looked like in kind of your parenting. So like why esports? Like why has that become a thing for you and for your
Well, I
family?
think I think first understanding that there is a unique difference between video games and esports.
Okay.
Video games they've always been a part of our family, just
Hmm.
like family picnics and barbecues and getting together with family outside of a pandemic reality. But I can remember the day my son graduated grade 9. He finished his last day of school, and he gets in the car and he says, "Dad, I'm not going to college or university." Now, every fiber of my being is like, "What? Like, you
Yeah.
got to be kidding me. Like, you're not going to have education?" But I was like, "Nope. We have a plan. We have a methodology here. Let's let it ride." So, son, what do you think you're going to do then?
Yeah. Tell me
He
more
says,
about that.
"Tell me more about this plan." He says,
Mhm.
"I'm going to be a professional esports player." I'm like, "That is fascinating. What can I do to
Mhm.
help?" And
Mhm.
I didn't even really realize what I was saying at the time, but what can I do to help? Didn't tell him that his decision was wrong.
Right.
Didn't put down the energy that he had, the courage that he had to
Mhm.
come and tell his dad, something that I'm sure he was a little bit nervous of the response was going to be. And it gave me time to cool off too.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so,
Yeah.
um,
I love that, man. Like I want to pause on that a little bit because I think that is such a counterintuitive way to respond. Because
mm,
really what we're saying here, and this is something I'm sure like some of you watching this video, listening to this, like your kid has said the exact same thing. They want to be a YouTuber, they want to be a Twitch streamer, they want to be an esports player, like that's their dream. This is for you and I, Brett. This is the equivalent of us saying when we were kids, I want to be in the NFL, I want to be in the
mhm,
NBA. And I dare say that, and I don't actually have the stats to back this up, it's purely conjecture, but I dare say it's probably harder to become a full-time YouTube, Twitch, esports person than it is to be those other things, because those other things are so much more well established and there's
yeah,
a bit more of a clear path towards them. Whereas YouTube, those kind of things, like anybody with a computer can turn it on and try to do that. So the saturation is like far more extreme.
yes,
Um, but you know, think of how our parents would have reacted
yeah,
if we went to them and said that kind of stuff. It would be like, yeah, that's not realistic. That's not going to happen. Your odds of doing that are 0.00001%. You need to pick something that's, you know, more realistic.
mhm,
Um, and I'm sure the deflation after that, uh, just our childhood died a little bit, you know. What's
yeah,
that? There's that study they did. This is several years old and I might screw it up, but you can Google it. They did this study with kindergartners and they asked, you know, classes of kindergartners how many of them consider themselves an artist. Almost every hand shoots up. I'm an artist. I'm an artist. I'm an artist. And then, you know, they would progressively, I don't remember if they like progressively asked them or if they just asked them again when they're like fifth graders or something like
mhm,
that. And it was like substantially less hands because for whatever reason, you know, at some point real life set in or they just decided they don't have that skill or that talent or they were told that they don't, like whatever the reason. Um, and I think it's moments like these that you're talking about, Brett, that parents have the opportunity to kill a little bit of that child inside or encourage it and
yeah,
foster it, you know?
yeah, and so we went through that process. So in the summertime, so I totally embraced the idea that he wanted to do esports,
Hmm.
and we didn't have a computer that he could play video games on. I didn't have a computer that I could play a video game on at the time.
Hmm.
And so I challenged him. I said, listen, you're playing this, the game that you want to play. I'm like, okay, well, professionals don't play on their consoles, they play on PCs. So I'm going to give you a challenge. I want you to um, acquire a technological tool that you can use to translate your skill set, and I want you to maintain your rank within your game over the next 3 months. If you can do that, I'll buy you a PC.
Mm.
And so he had to go and spend his own money because he had a paper route. So he had to go and spend his own money to go and buy the piece of tech. He had to have an investment in the process.
Mm.
This isn't just this random dream that I was going to let my kid have. I wanted him to earn it. I wanted him to
Yeah.
work at it.
Yeah.
And so he went through that process and he passed with flying colors. He was able to get into a coaching environment where he was actually coached in the game. The coach loved his connection to the game and how he was playing it. And it sent us down a completely different path, even before the pandemic, where we were challenged with the idea of allowing our son to play video games professionally.
Mm.
And my wife and I had to put ourselves in a position where, are we willing to homeschool? Are we willing to pull our son out of traditional academic approaches to thrive in his profession of choice, so to speak? And it was a process, but when we offered it to him and he took off with flying colors. Now, again, coming back to the comment I made before, we had to define that video games for him was now a job. It was a tool.
Mm.
It wasn't just a toy anymore. This
Hmm.
wasn't something he could just jam out with his friends. We've had to put very serious conversations in the process. Um, and he's had lots of great relationships and lots of terrible relationships with people on the internet, because there's both out there. Um, I think that's that, and that led me to the place where I am today, and the transition I've made as both as a parent, but also in the pastoral realm, in wanting to do more mental health coaching for the dynamic. So I want to take this parenting model that we've developed and help families understand how esports can help them.
Mhm.
And I think that's going to be kind of the focus of us moving forward right now, is really coming alongside side parents. There's an author that I follow out of Philadelphia. His name is Steve Robertson. He's writing a book called Aliens Among Us, specifically highlighting some of the aspects of this Generation Z. So if you have a child between the ages of 8 and 22 today, they are within that Generation Z, it's referred to.
Mhm.
And that 65% of students entering grade 1 this year, 2021, 65% of those kids will work in an industry that doesn't even exist yet by the time they graduate college. And it's going to be in completely digital.
Yeah.
And
And
if you,
that's the kind of evolution that our society sees, that we can't think that doing things the same way will continue to work, right?
yeah,
Like if the
uh,
industry is going to evolve, jobs are going to evolve, the government's going to evolve, whatever things are going to evolve. Um, if we think that we can just keep parenting the same way, keep, doing church the same way, like whatever, insert
mhm,
thing here, we're going to be left behind. We're going to be irrelevant. And frankly, just dead, like maybe
yeah,
not literally dead, but just stagnant, maybe is the, is
yeah,
the better
I
word
like
for it.
that. Yeah. And that's just the reality of what's happening. And I mean, COVID's terrible in so many ways,
Mm-hmm.
but it has accelerated this introduction
Yeah.
to this digital landscape in a way that nobody could have even anticipated.
Yeah.
I mean, I would consider myself fairly technologically advanced,
Mm-hmm.
but I had never been on a Zoom call, right? Like I would
Yeah.
Skype with my parents at Christmas once a year
Yeah.
pre-pandemic, and now I'm doing 10 to 15 Zoom calls a week,
Right. Yep.
right? Like I'm right here now in the midst of this. And I mean, I love it. I do. I really do love the fact that there's this unique shift that's happening, in all dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
in parenting, in school, in our just our general day-to-day life. And I think we're if we're willing to be objective, I think that we can have some really good fruit come as a result of this.
Yeah. It's a shakeup that we needed.
Yeah.
And when I say we, I mean probably the human race, but I think especially the church.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's very common. I mean, just look at church history. We love our traditions and we love doing things the way that we do things because that's the way that we do things.
Yes.
And that's not good enough. And
Yeah.
we have to be better. We have to be innovative and we have to push. And this is exactly the kind of shakeup I think we needed in some regards. Obviously, yeah, it sucks, and I
Mhm.
wish it could have come about in a different way.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can look for that silver lining, and we can say, hey, like this has given us the opportunity to um, pursue this stuff and think more critically about this kind of digital landscape. So, um, one thing that I think this is maybe a burning question, especially for Christian parents, people that are watching this. There's obviously a lot of rhetoric around video games, esports, when it comes to our faith. And especially when it comes to, you know, violent video games or very like mature themed video games, you know, even just shooters. I mean, shooters in esports, they kind of go hand in hand, you know, Overwatch and Counter-Strike and Valorant and these games that, you know, you're just running around shooting people. Just maybe walk us through a little bit of your process when it came to, or if you even had one, or help parents that are watching this come to terms with that kind of stuff from sort of a Christian worldview.
Wow, that's a loaded question. And
That's
part
my
of
job.
me, yes, part of me wants to back up and talk a little bit about kind of where our relationship started and why I was really authentically enamored and I wanted to meet you because you
Aw.
did something so like I had never heard of anyone that was pressing the boundaries of authentically meeting people in this new space. You know, our kids, I mean, I have like, I don't know, there's the documentary that came out, the social dilemma. I think, did you see that? Did you
I
watch any of that?
haven't, man. I've had so
You're
many
not
people
missing
say that I
much.
need to watch it. Oh, you didn't
No,
like it?
you're not
Because I've
missing.
heard so many people say that I need to watch it.
Well, it is a very, very negative approach to uh, the addiction side within the digital space. And they get into a bunch of science and they get into a bunch of hormones and dopamine and serotonin and all of these effects that we have. But I think that, you know, one of the comments I made earlier about creating good practices, about creating and modeling what it is that our expectation is when it comes to behavior within the digital space. So, so my oldest son, he plays Call of Duty, and he has played every single Call of Duty I can think of that has ever been released. And he started as probably it was 12 years old, 11 or 12 years old when he started playing. And he would get really, really into it. He'd get really, really angry. And because he was 12, people would call him like all sorts of bad names. And they, but either my wife or I, we were sitting beside him while he was playing. And he would, his frustration would go up and I say, hey son, there's a mute button for a reason. Just mute them. So don't tell them how good you are. Show them how good you are. And we just repeated this message. And so he's now going to go to school for esports. He's got a scholarship to a school where he's going to have a place on their esports team, just like any other varsity athlete. And so I think that in the same way, this is kind of funny because it never would happen. But your son that wants to be an NFL player goes into the grocery store and takes the position in the produce aisle that he's on the line of scrimmage, and somebody's picked up a squash. It's his job to get that squash out of their hand. Like, of course that's not going to happen, right? And so I think that as equally invested as we can be in traditional sports, this idea that just because it's something we may not fully understand or comprehend, it's all of a sudden going to have a violent end. And I don't think that's...
So that's a really good comparison with the, because that's what I think of when we hear the violence in video games kind of, you know, argument or whatever you want to call it. Is, I mean, if we take football, you know, American football, for instance, it is at its core a pretty violent game. You would never think of, I don't think most people would associate the word violent with American football.
No.
Because we've just come to know, love, and accept it because we can differentiate in our brains what's happening.
Yeah.
It's a game, right? We know, we can say that it's a game.
Yeah.
These people don't actually want to kill each other. They don't actually, well, maybe in some cases they do actually want to hurt each other, but yes. At its best, they don't want to like hurt each other, cause lasting damage, but at its core, it's pretty violent. Like, you are just knocking people out. We have to put tons and tons of pads on people so that they don't have lasting long-term damage.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, I think a lot of our sort of hysteria about video games has largely come from ignorance. And I don't use that word as like a mean thing, but just, we just don't know. Like, nobody,
Yeah.
it's still pretty new. It's not as new as we think it is,
Yeah.
but it is still pretty new, and we're still learning a lot.
Absolutely.
So
And you said something that's really powerful there, that we put lots and lots of pads on players that were doing traditional sports in
mm,
order to protect them. So what practices are we putting in place to protect our kids
mm.
that are entering that space? Right? I
Yeah,
came
that's
I
a
came to
that's a
yeah.
cool analogy, like the sort of pads that we put on. And there's obviously an extreme you can go to, right? Like, there's you know there's too many pads you could put on a quarterback, or too many pads you could put on a lineman that are going to make them very ineffective at their role.
Yeah.
And the same is true within esports and video games, is like, we can go too far with the padding, as it were.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
that's bad.
find myself in the position I am today and how I met you by entering that international esports call as a call to pastors and parents and leaders within the Christian community to start to investigate as to what was actually happening in a space that we didn't have a role in. We don't have a traditional position within this digital landscape.
Yeah.
Until COVID happened, only the churches that could afford it had a digital presence.
Mhm.
Now, every church essentially
Had
has
to, yeah,
some kind of a
whether they
digital
liked it or not.
presence, whether they liked it or not, and whether they're good at it or not.
Yeah. Mhm.
But I think that for me today, wanting to help parents come to an understanding of that, what are the dynamics that our kids are trying to manage through. So we're looking at statistics pre-COVID. There's some ideas that are in and around 58 to 60% of kids were dealing with or managing some form of anxiety just by going to high school. Okay. And of those 60%, 40 of them had a dual modality where the anxiety hadn't been treated well and depression had begun to set in. So take COVID numbers now. I was listening to one interview where he was the doctor of medicine, the mental health doctor, was adamant that 100% of teenagers today are dealing with a significant uptick in anxiety just simply because of that uncertainty. And so we go back into do we train up a child in the way that we want them to go? Or do we give them the tools to navigate
Mhm.
the space that they're entering? And
Yeah.
and this is just the beginning of probably a much longer conversation with the parents and the youth leaders and the volunteers that are connecting with us. And we're genuinely looking forward to having that Q&A, to have time where we're
Mm.
going to get your questions and we're going to talk about them specifically, rather than kind of just throwing statistics out here and there and everywhere. We really want to get to the place where we're capturing the significant struggles that are happening in real time. Because
Yeah.
we can have all kinds of theories, right?
Mhm.
But those theories may or may not amount to much. I've had a positive experience in esports, but I've met some people that have had really tremendously negative experiences within esports.
Sure.
Um, yeah.
So, this next question may be either extremely difficult or extremely simple. I hope it's simple, because, you know, I'm sure there are folks watching this, listening to this, that the whole thing just feels really overwhelming,
Mm-hmm.
because they're gamers, they're not really into that world. It just feels like a completely different world, a completely alien world. And I guess I want to try as best as we can. And I think both, maybe both of us answer this. You go first so I can copy your answer. What is one thing a parent watching this, someone watching this, what's one change they can make, one thing they can do, maybe even today, tomorrow, whatever, that would start to move them in a direction of all these things that we're talking about? Just one thing that they can do, one change that would make a difference and help them better engage their kids in this whole world.
It's a two-prong answer because I think I want to talk.
You only get one. Nope.
I only get one, but I got to talk to two different types of parents.
You found a loophole, man. Dang
Found
it.
a loophole. I was quick and easy on that one.
Yeah.
I think that when it comes to the esports, the parents of kids that are playing video games, which will predominantly be parents of male children between the ages of 12 and 18. Okay, so predominantly, not exclusively, but to a large degree. So finding out what game they're playing, and by yourself, without your child knowing, go and find a tutorial on how the game is played on YouTube. And watch the tutorial. You can usually find ones that are 5 to 10 minutes. Many of them will look like, oh my God, I can't spend 55 minutes watching a video about a video game I don't really care about. But that's where it started for me. That, my son playing Overwatch is one of the games you mentioned earlier. I didn't like the game because too much stuff was going on. But I made the decision to watch a video to learn about the game during the summertime that I gave him his challenge. And once I started watching him play more, the game significantly slowed down. And it reminded me of the first time I watched an NHL game. Right? I couldn't watch it on TV to save my life. But the moment
when I watch a hockey game, I have no idea what's happening. Like zero clue. I'm like, what? I don't even know where the puck is.
Yeah. And that's a big issue because you're relying on somebody else to take your view of it. But I went to an actual hockey game, like an NHL hockey game, and I got to watch it happening in real time, and it slowed right down, and I can watch that now. So that's the first one. The second group of parents are going to be parents of daughters, of young girls today. And again, not exclusive, but predominantly the parent of daughters. Who are they watching? Who is influencing their life when it comes to their approach to social media? What is entertaining them today? I mean, I know what entertained me when I was a teenager. It was cartoons, and it still entertains me today. I'll still throw a cartoon on once in a while, but I know that my daughters are in a completely different realm, and it's taken a very long time to get to the place where they kind of trust me not to condemn their influencers, but to better understand who's influencing them, so that we can have conversations about our moral and ethical values, who our family is, and why did we choose to do what we did? Why did we parent the way that we parented when there's clearly other models that are out there? Why did we choose this one? So I think that there is that similar message, right? But making sure we're looking at the two different worlds.
The way I would summarize, and I knew this would happen, you stole my answer. But the way I would really summarize what you're saying is just get in there, like get your hands dirty and get engaged. For whatever reason, we as parents, as Christians, as people, we have for whatever reason drawn this line in the sand at video games.
Yeah.
We don't do it with soccer. We don't do it, with traditional sports. We don't do it with mathletes or whatever other extracurricular hobbies, but we absolutely draw that line at video games. And we say that is not a legitimate thing, or for whatever reason, that's where we're going to stop getting our hands dirty. And I think that is a huge mistake, because I think your kids are still going to play them and they're still going to be interested in them. So you can either drive a wedge further between your relationship or draw closer in relationship.
Yeah.
And so I think that's exactly what you're saying, is just get in there, get your hands dirty, ask questions, be involved, ask questions, ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. I'm sorry if it's boring to you, but that's what you signed up for as a parent. You didn't sign up to create smaller versions of yourself. You signed
What?
up to create a uniquely made person
Yeah.
by the hands of God. And it's your job as a parent, it's our job as parents to make sure that they can fully realize that potential. And if that's in video games, awesome. If it's not, great. You're off the hook.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, and it's not going anywhere, guys, video games are only growing. It is video games. So I love what you said. Watch a tutorial on. We are in the informational, like, digital age. There is so much stuff out there, and maybe it's overwhelming, but there are plenty of tools out there. Come to our website, shameless self-promotion, lovethynerd.com. We've got tons of tools. Brett's a great resource. These videos are a great resource. But end of the day, you got to do what you got to do as a parent, and that's get your hands dirty. You know, when they were first born, it was getting poop on your hands because you're changing diapers. Once they get out of those diapers, you get your hands dirty in a lot of different ways. So, yeah, I think that's a great place to kind of wrap it up, man. I really appreciate your time and being able to talk through all this stuff with us.
I really appreciate it, Chris. Thanks so much for being the questioner and helping us learn a little bit more about what the space is and how can we inhabit it as parents. So I'm really excited about where this can go. Thanks so much, Chris.
Thanks, guys, for watching. Bye.
Bye, guys. Big shout out and thank you again to Alvin and to Chris for spending some time with me to just kind of look at how does parenting work today? How is it different, but how is it somewhat the same? And so Alvin and I are going to be doing a live Q&A in just a couple of weeks. There's going to be more details of that coming up very soon. But in order for a live Q&A to work, we need cues. We need questions. We need questions from you as parents, questions and concerns that you might have in regards to the digital landscape. There is so much new research and new science and new ideas that are coming out almost on a day-to-day, or at least a weekly basis, that are helping those that are looking for the information to become the most impactful parents that we can be today. And we need to do this for our kids. We need to do this for our future. And I'm just so privileged to have this opportunity. So thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us tonight. And I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to getting into the questions and spending the time with Alvin as we just kind of build this dialogue. So let's close in prayer. Heavenly Father, I just thank you so much for this opportunity. It's an honor to serve you, to serve the next generation, to be called as a parent. I thank you and I pray for every single family that's watching this video now and in the future. You, O Lord, would be in their midst right now. In Jesus' name, amen. Have an amazing night, and I look forward to seeing as many of you and hearing from as many of you as we can moving forward. God bless. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chris and Brett, for your insights and your encouragement. Our parents have a lot to think about, but also you've given them a chance to prayerfully discern how to best engage with their kids in esports. And we are excited to have Bret come back with us on Tuesday, May the 4th at 7 p.m. We're going to be hosting a live Q&A and bringing your questions to him to get further understandings about this. And so all the information is available in the link in the description below. And so hopefully we can see you on Tuesday, May the 4th to continue the conversation. In the meantime, blessings to you as you grow with your kids and how they are engaging in this digital space with them.